Thank you. First of all, I want to be excused for being late. Chair, I want to be excused for being late.
No problem at all. Yes.
Sorry for that. Yes, it is actually the historical one. The university is the historical one, which is being come into the new version. Okay.
Yes, that's very nice.
Yes, so
maybe you can tell us a little bit about Nalanda. Yes.
My presentation, so it would be me and my voice and your ears, no PPT. So you have to really concentrate on me and my voice, what I'm saying. So I will start. At the starting, I want to state that the focus of this paper is precisely on Vajrayāna meditative practice of DT yoga that has a spiritual context. There are a large number of works that have been evaluated as meditation practices that are not exactly spiritual. For example, the mindfulness programs. There are fewer researches on spiritual practice, and in our case, visualization, there's very much less work is available. Works of meditation practices applicable to a particular religious or spiritual culture provide information that may contribute to overall research of religious and spiritual phenomena. The best way to develop this field is to regulate the methodological issues that currently affect the area and explore how efficiently to address such problems so that the future studies can be as robust as possible. The paper will review components like definition, study design, theological and epistemological perspective of research. Further, I will explain that how and why issue of definition needs to be appropriately addressed, failing which many disagreements in the philosophical context of meditation practice are likely to gather. So I'll first concentrate on the definition part. Major work both in quantity and quality have been carried out which aims at exploring the neuroscience of meditation practice. From these works, one can easily make out or point out issues which scholars and scientists are facing while carrying out their researches. For example, Dr. Maria, who I seem was in a panel, but I think she has been would be in the speaking in the closing ceremony. So in her paper, she clearly states that the problem which she faces is the difficulty in getting access to the Buddhist meditators, and the second, the influence of meditation on imagery, the visualization part. The common problem which could be noticed in defining the term meditation. This is because different cultures have different types of meditation. Sometimes the process and the explanation present in the sacred text or the sacred text being opposite. Here I want to explain that these are not exactly opposite, but different masters have different view on them. So if someone is following the Tsongkhapa as a teacher and he's following him, so he would have a different perspective on visualization. So different schools have a different view and different views. So in this context, Avasthi praises and comments the attempts made in recent scholarships on neural correlates of meditation. Still, he mentions a number of issues and outcoming in the research area. He says, quote unquote, this may be due to a variety of reasons, ranging from simply omissions, a lack of suitable resources to address these issues, with the concept of meditation as discussed in the sacred text. It is true to a certain extent that without properly understanding the traditional text, it is difficult to define what meditation means to a particular practice. In general, there can be no specific definition for meditation which could be formed to define or represent all practices. Therefore, scholars aim to develop an operational definition that includes a description taken from the text as well as the modern neuroscientific account of the phenomena. For example, Dr. Maria and Ideo Amiai in their scholarship, Arousal versus Relaxation, they provide the operational definition as the first goal of their research, quote unquote, to examine whether Vajrayāna meditative practices indeed lead to arousal as reflected by sympathetic activation and behavior makers of phasic alertness, such as an immediate boost in performance on cognitive tasks, instead of a relaxation response that would characterize meditative practice of the Theravada practice. So here, clearly this operational definition can be divided into two parts. That one is what she has got from the sacred text, that is the Vajrayāna practices leads to arousal, that it leads to arousal. And the second is the more of a scientific part, that is how arousal is seen from a scientific perspective, to be specific, the neuroscientific perspective. Many scholars have shown their concerns on the existing operational definition of meditation. For example, Avasthi in his scholarship on issues and perspectives in meditation research, in a search for definition, addresses the definition issues. In the context of Vajrayāna Buddhism, very less research work has been done so far. In context of Vajrayāna Buddhism, this is due to the methodological and theoretical problems faced by the scholars who wish to study this practice. So it is apparent that the number of references that have been used to explain the variety of terms concerning the practice or the custom itself. But my question over here, which I want to raise, is that do the authors of these scholarships understand the theoretical or the conceptual and the cultural nuances of meditation? If there is little or no understanding, it could further lead to a weak operationalized definition, and it is very much possible that the project may have a weak work design, vague conclusion, or wrong output, because wrong output means different from what was expected. And further, more potential issues which could lead to philosophical conflicts in the context of meditation practice. One way to look into this matter is by seeing who all scholars are working on the empirical research project. By empirical, I want to say the scholars who are working on the conducting experiments on the meditators and collecting the data. It comes to my notice that a majority of these scholars are from medical science or psychology field. This is because they all belong to the profession where functional and structural framework of brain is studied and are more accessible to the types of equipments which are used to test brain or the neural activities. But it should also be seen that the operational definition, the first part, which is taken from the texts, basically, which they are taking from this text. The real knowledge which is in the text is available to the practitioner, and this knowledge is passed from one teacher to his student. Also, a person examining such practices will know a lot of information, will know the facts and a lot of information that would be useful in forming the operationalized definition. So over here, such people are the scholars in anthropology and religion. In this context, in the opening ceremony, the scholar Eli Jelinek explained this more specifically by using the term cognitive anthropology, if I'm not wrong. He used this term and he explained exactly what I am also saying, the ethnographic studies which are being done to do a close observation of monks and nuns who are going through these practices and to help to study the neural correlates or the physiological. Okay. Here my point is that scholars from diverse disciplines like anthropology and religion should work or should come forward and take more initiative with the scholars of different fields like psychology and medical science to form a more sensitive, appropriate, reliable, and responsive operational definition. This is what I would be calling more like an empirical interdisciplinary research work. So this was one thing that I wanted to share from my paper, and the second thing is the how the scholars choose a practitioner. In Vajrayāna itself, the different practitioners will differ from each other regarding the quality of meditation. It is difficult to rely on the fact that more the number of years of meditation, in scholarly term it is like cumulative years of meditation, it's like hours, the number of hours the meditator is practicing in one day, into 365 days, into the number of years he has been doing it. So assuming that a new person who is being initiated in the culture, or into the practice, it is possible that he can produce more comprehensive imagery. And say if this is true, it raises the question on the ongoing scholarships on how the investigator choose the practitioner. In order to select a practitioner for further comparative work with other practices like Vipassana, I would say a pre-investigation of different practitioners should be conducted within the individual practice itself. This investigation will be carried to check their expertise regarding the formation of imagery. Such an examination should include both experienced practitioners and who are new into the practice.
You have 5 minutes left.
Yeah. The work could be a simple survey test or medical test like using EEG, fMRI, measuring heart rate oscillation, etc., or even both, whichever suits the purpose of research. Such additional examination will take more time and labor, but it is good to move forward into further investigation with the best practitioners. So actually, my intentions basically are not to call into the capabilities of other scholars or who have worked into this field. Rather, my intentions are to work on these neuroscientific findings together and working together with the philosophical framework of meditation practice, and further help in bridging the gap between the science and the science and Vajrayāna meditative practice. So that in future we could have a sound debate between debate between science and the practice. So I just want to conclude by saying that the neuroscientific study of spiritual phenomena in this field is like still in initial stages. So it is very common to have very methodological difficulties and all. So, but this neuroscientific examination of these practices can change the viewpoint from science and religion both. For example, from the religious viewpoint, such investigations may help toward a better understanding of the human experience of spirituality and the religion. From scientific viewpoint, such investigation may help explain the complex functioning of the human brain and also the overall relationship between brain and body. For example, performing visualization, one can say it enhances the cognitive process or the neural activities, which could help in understanding the different brain disorders and further finding a way to fix them. So finally, if the methodological challenges can be met, works of spiritual practice and their associated experiences could provide relevant knowledge for linking our scientific and spiritual pursuits. And thank you.
Thank you very much. You still have 2 more minutes if you want to add something.
Okay. I am very thankful to all the people who organized this conference, and I think I'm one of the youngest over here among the speakers. So actually my purpose of here was to find my next step and to work how to make a possible a healthy relation between this, the meditative practice which is called deity yoga and the neuroscience behind it. So I was really fascinated in the opening when Dr. Ian Baker and L.A. Jellican, I'm sorry for my pronunciation, please excuse me. So I was very fascinated by these scholars because in a way, after going so much, reading a lot, like I read a lot about this Vajrayāna and this neuroscience and all the research papers, but by seeing what these scholars were reflecting, I could really make a connection that, yeah, I think I'm also on the right path, and hopefully I will, after finishing the conference, I'm very hopeful that I will really find my next step to take my work to the next level, and I'm very grateful for you all people to be here for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.